Hey guys! So it's nearly the end of April, so I thought it'd be the best time to do my March wrap up. Obviously it's quite late because I've been moving and things, so it didn't quite happen when I wanted it to, but hopefully because I'm doing it now I'll make up for it, maybe? What do you think? Anyway, so these are the books that I read in March and what I thought of them. So we have Noughts and Crosses by Malorie Blackman. This is actually a reread for me, which I did the whole series in March, so you can see the rest of them. But I loved this book. Rereading it again just reminded me how much I loved it. And yeah, it was just so powerful and wonderful and emotional. And if you haven't read it yet, I really think you should, because it is just a brilliant book, absolutely. UK YA at its finest. The second book I read in March was The Recruit by Robert Muchamore. This one was actually better than I thought it was going to be. Not that I didn't have high hopes for it, because everyone keeps on raving about it, but I started off and I was a bit wary of it, but actually found it really compelling and kept just turning the page and wanted to find out more. I thought it was really fun and adventurous and sort of, yeah, just a really light-hearted but also kind of deep read that, yeah, I just really enjoyed. So I'm glad I got a chance to read that. And a full, more in-depth review should hopefully be on the blog at some point. The third book I read this month was Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. And this one I also really enjoyed. I wasn't too sure again about how I was going to feel about it because it's so hyped and it's so big, but actually yeah, I really did enjoy it. It was a fun and adventurous book. It was really interesting, and I really enjoyed the characters in the story and everywhere where the story went. So I'm really looking forward to continuing on with the series and seeing what else happens. I know I don't really know much about Greek myths. I can't really remember all of them, but I think it was just a really fun read that I really enjoyed. So there's that, which is always good. And again, hopefully a longer review will be on the blog in the next couple of months. The fourth book that I read this month was Deeper by Robin York, and this book I absolutely loved. I really just fell into the story. I found it really compelling and interesting, and just couldn't stop to put it down. I was blown away by the words and the story and the plot, and I just think it was such a powerful new adult story that I would just recommend it to anyone. I did a full review of the book, which I'll leave in the link down below. But yeah, basically it was just a really good book that I think you should read if you haven't already. The fifth book I read in March was Knife Edge by Malorie Blackman. Again, a reread for me. Was just as good the second time round. I sort of, I can only vaguely remember the story, but I really enjoyed it. It was so nice to see everything happen again and to read it from, a different perspective where I kind of remembered but didn't really remember. But yeah, it was just so good. Malorie Blackman is just such a brilliant writer. So if you haven't read this book, because even though you've read the first one, I definitely recommend reading this one because it's just really interesting and has just a brilliant plot. The sixth book I read in March was The Fearsome Dreamer by Laura Eve. Unfortunately, this wasn't one I particularly loved as much as I thought I would. I did enjoy it and it was a good read, and I could see where she was going with it, but I really struggled with getting connected to the book and the characters, and then it just ended, and for me it sort of felt like it ended in the middle of a book, and I found it really hard to distance myself from that. And I don't know, that I feel like for some people that would make them really want to read the next one, but for me I'm going to find out if the next one's actually any good before I bother trying to read it, because I don't want to be disappointed again. I was really excited for this one, and it just wasn't right for me. It wasn't the right book for me, and I think that's possibly half the problem, but hopefully the next one will change my mind and I'll end up loving this book. But for now, it was an okay read, but it wasn't brilliant. The seventh book I read this month was Love Letters to the Dead by Ava Delaria, and oh my god, it was so good. I just posted a review of this on my blog, and basically it was fantastic, well written, fully connected with the book, emotional on every single spectrum of emotions, really just powerful book that to blew me away, and I just really felt connected. I know I've said that already, the book, but it was just really interesting and lovely to read and different and unique, and everything that Perks of Being a Wallflower wasn't, because I didn't actually like the Perks, but I really like Love Letters to the Dead. So I'm really glad that happened. I would definitely recommend that book because it's just this amazing coming of age story. I think just brilliant. The 8th book I read this month was Checkmate by Mallory Blackman. This one again was rereads, but actually I found this one so much better the second time I reading it. Maybe it might have been the third, I can't remember. Because I couldn't really remember what had happened, so it was almost like reading it for the first time, and it was just really gut-wrenching and compelling and just pulled you in all the right places. I really enjoyed this book, and I think it was written really well, and was just a brilliant book in this series. And I really like the way that Mallory's, takes the characters on a full journey. I know that this one was supposed to be the end of the series, and I feel like it really works. And I think the ending of this book is just really powerful and brilliant, just like the first one. So yeah, just a brilliant read. I was really glad I got around to rereading. The 9th book I read was A Room Full of Chocolate by Jane Elson, and again, just like Fearsome Dreamer, it wasn't the book I'd hoped it would be. Everyone I knew was hyping it up, making it amazing, I think it was just brilliant. I sat down to read it, and I didn't see the appeal. Yes, there were fun and light moments, and it was really good in a way, but at the same time, because it was trying to be a realistic book but had very unrealistic things happening within it, it kept pulling me outside of the book and back into my world, and I couldn't use it as an escapism. It wasn't the fun, light-hearted read I wanted it to be, and I just couldn't turn off my brain while reading it, which is one of the things I was expecting and hoping to do, because it sounded like such a fun and wonderful book, and I just felt like so many things within it that were dealt really badly. And just one more paragraph could have changed how that was dealt with and how my enjoyment of it went, but it just didn't sit right for me. So unfortunately I didn't really enjoy this one as much as I hoped to. It was still, it was still a fun, light, interesting read, but it wasn't the most amazing book I've ever read. So there's that. Then finally, the 10th book I read in March was Double Cross by Mallory Blackman. When I read this years ago, I remember feeling like this is one that I really enjoyed even more than the rest of the series, and I think I'm going to carry on and say that yes, I believe that still, except for Noughts and Crosses, which is the best one ever, and then this would be close second. Basically, the best thing about this one is that it takes a different tone to the rest of the series. It's more about like gangsters rather than dystopians. Obviously it still has a dystopian setting, but it's more about life in a different way within the dystopian setting, and I think that really worked. And just the rest of the plot and everything was so intense and like just emotional and powerful and brilliant. So just a brilliant reread. And if you haven't read the series, do read the entire series because they're amazing. If you've read the first three but not read the fourth one because you're like, ugh, it was just an extra addition, don't do that. Actually read this book because it is from the same world, but it's from different characters, and I think that makes it so much more interesting and fun to read about. So I would definitely recommend you read this one as well. So those were all the books I read in March. I did also start reading Sleuth on Skates, which I have now finished. But yes, so those were all the books that I read. So that's everything from me, and I'll see you again later. Bye!